Success Insight shares the stories of the people with passion and drive who make things happen in the world. Here's your host, Howard Fox.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Success Insight podcast. Our guest today is Lisa Rose. Lisa is an award-winning author of children's fiction and nonfiction picture books. She is a teacher, presenter, and an advocate for children with special needs. Lisa is also the author of the Star Powers chapter book series about a girl who wants to be an astronaut and also uses a wheelchair. Some of the titles in this series include Touching the Sky, 321 Blast Off, Space Camp, Mom on the Moon, Galaxy in Space, and Space Discovery. I want to go travel with this little girl. She has numerous other titles to her credit, including having her books sent to homes throughout North America. Lisa Rose, welcome to the Success Insight podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
As I was preparing the notes, I was really I could make my own novel out of your background and some of the great work that you have been doing. Luckily, my coaching background kicked back into gear and said, Howard, just ask questions. She'll tell you everything. So I would love if you could share with our audience in the time we have together a little bit about your background and how you went from teacher to book author to advocate. I mean, it's just such a fascinating story.
Okay, well, thank you. I actually started out writing plays in college. And my parents decided that I should do something that makes more money than be a writer. So I became a teacher, became very rich as a teacher, and retired and wrote books. No, that's not true.
Did you say very rich? That's what I thought. I heard you say that.
I know. That's a lie. That's a lie. I'm lying right now. I became a teacher and I taught first grade. And I read many, many books, some that I liked and some that I didn't. And I think that my writing transformed and said I was going to write children's books. Also, I taught in Detroit and Pontiac, where most of my students were African American. And I also noticed that my books that I had to read to them really didn't have anything to do with their life. It didn't depict who they are and the life that they went through every single day. And they found a hard time connecting with it. So that kind of put into my head about expanding the representation in picture books. And then life happens, and I was gifted with a wonderful child on the first night of Hanukkah.
All right.
And we found out later that she was visually impaired. She is legally blind. And I then noticed even more that there weren't any books that really depicted the life that my child had. And so I wanted not only to have her be represented, because you have to have in literature, you have to have not only a mirror for a child to see themselves, but a window for other people to see them. So there needs to be mirrors and windows. And that's how we learn about each other and learn about other cultures and to create empathy. If you don't understand something, how can you relate to it? But after knowing it, and if you're not exposed to it, where are you going to learn it? You're going to learn it in media.
As you shared briefly this wonderful background, it dawned on me right away, the uniqueness or our individuality, who we are. It's a journey for the child, but even with whatever their special need are, or the inclusiveness of how they feel. Because you mentioned Pontiac and Detroit. I mean, I grew up in, actually, probably it was a neighbor of you at some point, or a family. I don't know. I grew up in Oak Park.
Go OP!
All right. Now I'm thinking of food, but okay, we're going to... All right, so we're not going to go there. But I'm thinking this journey it's the child's journey, but it's also the parent's journey. Because as parents, we want nothing but the best for our child, but then potentially for whatever reason, we're seeing them suffer because they're not feeling included and treated, even though you might have some type of disability, so to speak, we're somewhat excluded. And then the parents feel, God, what can I do? I'm not doing good enough. Or maybe they don't even know how to deal with the issue that their child is facing. And I'm sensing that the books that you're writing, the Star Power series, the Missing Voice series, are all not only to help the child navigate the challenges, but also to help the parents as well.
It's to help the parents, but it's also to help the community, because inclusion is not just for that child. Inclusion is for the community. So the community can work together. I mean, it is true. You do need a village to raise a child. And when they know my daughter, Victoria, who is visually impaired throughout school, they can also learn, wow, this person has a lot to offer. The people that she's going to school with are going to be the future CEOs of America, are going to be the ones that are giving the jobs and finding ways to include everyone in the world. And really being a parent, when you're a parent, you have an idea and picture of what your child is going to be. And so I thought, I'm going to France. This is going to be nice. I'm going to France. Well, I got off at Zimbabwe somehow. And now I have to learn how to live in Zimbabwe. And I was not prepared. I mean, here I am, a teacher, have a master's degree in reading, and have all of this experience. I had the least experience with a child with special needs. I was more prepared for a child who had hearing impairments than visual impairments, even though I wore glasses since I was 5. But I mean, you have to recognize, and I think people say, oh, you're the best parent. That's so good. You're so great to this child. You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. This is your kid. This is your reality. And you have to rise to that occasion. Honestly, I mean, I think any parent, if they had a choice whether to have a typical developing child or a child with special needs, they would choose to pick their child to have a typical experience.
Sure.
Because it's hard, it's challenging, and yes, you do need others' support in the community, because there is a lot of disconnection and feeling alone. And sometimes you are most alone when you are in a crowded room.
Right. And I'm reminded, one thing is where I myself was not the best I could be. I remember going out on a date. This is not an about me conversation, Lisa. It's about you. But I remember going out on a date with a woman she was divorced. She had 2 little boys, one of whom had autism. And I remember going out with them, and I just was remembering myself, oh my God, I don't know how I can deal with this. It was so hard. And it didn't dawn on me till after the experience, and we did go our separate ways. But I remember I was not the best I could be, because I was thinking about myself. I should have been thinking about her and about, again, the community as a whole. And I love the fact that you also brought up about the child's experience, the parent's experience, but also educating the community.
Yeah, it really is the community that's going to make all the difference. And that's what makes you not feel alone. That's really, I think we can go on, but all of the increase in mental health and other things is disconnection with other people. When you are connected, when you feel valued by other people, that's what creates happiness. Disconnection is what creates the unhappiness.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about the book series now, because it's wonderful. They're wonderful books. The illustrations are lovely, and I think that's been one of the nicest aspects of doing this podcast. We've really had conversations with a lot of great children's book authors, and I'm always amazed at the stories and the creativity that goes into it, and the process of writing the book and where the ideas came from, the fruition of those ideas. And when you started to write the children's books, was it the Star Power series first? Was it the Missing Voice series? Where was that initial inkling? Okay, I want to start writing some books to address a gap in our community.
Well, I never set out to write a book to solve a problem, because your job as an author is to tell a good story.
Okay.
So I actually wrote books where all of my characters were African American, because that's what I knew. Those were my students. So I was writing those books, and I was writing some nonfiction. I call them my teacher books.
Gotcha.
And then the PJ Library was founded, and that was founded in order. The idea of the organization is very similar to the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. So that if you had Jewish books in the home, that kids would be exposed to Jewish culture more. And again, feel closer to their community because they had the knowledge. So I wrote a story, and they said they needed books for it. And my agent at the time said, well, Lisa, you're Jewish. Maybe you should write some Jewish books. and she also happened to be Jewish as well. So I said, I don't know, let me try it.
Okay.
So I wrote one, and it ended up getting published. So you sit there and go, why did you sit to write? That was just like the first one that became published. And it was set in Israel. It's about Israeli Independence Day. It's about a very, very lazy painter who has to paint a big, huge, humongous mural. And he just can't think of what to do. And while he is doing everything but painting, his little dog, Ezra, paints this gorgeous mural. And that one was very fortunate to have my debut picture book be included in the PJ Library in 2016. So it went out to about 26,000 homes in North America.
That's huge. That's huge.
And it will actually go again out this spring in 2020 again. So while this is happening, if I sell a book today, it might not be out till 10 years, to 10 to 2. It feels like 10, but it's really 2 years.
Right.
And so while I'm doing that, I am actually supporting other authors who write about diversity. I host a picture book discussion group on Facebook, and it's called the Missing Voice Picture Book Discussion Group. And there I highlight either authors who are of color or write books that have people of color or have a little known history fact, just something that I felt was missing from the typical conversation. And we pick a book a month and we discuss it, and then we have an author chat online. And I have become involved in the Kitlit community, and people have gotten to know me that way. And I had an editor approach me, and she knew about my daughter. She loves superheroes, absolutely loves superheroes. So she would dress up. We both would dress up. We look very cute. And as Wonder Woman or Batgirl, and she would be with her cane. And she actually even was in the Oak Park Parade on 4th of July as Wonder Woman.
Oh my.
So I told her that we had to be involved in this parade, and I was promoting a local bookstore, which Book Beat, I'm sure. And she said, well, I don't want to go. And I said, well, you can wear your Wonder Woman costume. Well, of course. So her reaction of being Wonder Woman with the white cane in the parade and obviously on social media gained a lot of traction. And so I was approached by an editor who had an idea. And we fit. And the idea wasn't just, I talk about I call them Rudolph stories, where we always talk about the person who is different. And the fact that they're different is what saves the day. We really have to get past that. And
Right.
what the editor wanted to do was to write a story about a girl who likes space, and she just happened to be in a wheelchair. So really, it's about her and her friends and how she loves space. And of course, there are some situations where her wheelchair is a factor in that book. And so it really is a detail that they have to take care of. But I always made it as the kids were smarter than the adults, because they generally are.
They typically
and
are.
it was the adults that had the feelings that star powers could do it, not the kids. So it was really her proving sometimes to an adult that that was not a factor. And so I just wanted a child to enjoy a story about a child who had a physical challenge, and just treat it in the fact that, well, she has a wheelchair, she has brown hair. And I think that's what we have to do as a community, as a society, is to get past those Rudolph stories.
Right.
And that's how I want them to treat my child. I want them to treat my child as, this is just a girl, and that's her cane. And actually, a lot of kids, they name their canes. So like my daughter's is Caney, very creative, but she got it when she was like 5, so it was Caney. But I know that there's other ones that are Daisy and some other names. So like when we leave the house, I always say, is Caney with us? Where another child might say, is Daisy coming? Just to make sure that we're leaving the house with everything that we need. And that it's just another part of us.
I love this fact that your gifts, which you are sharing, you're a teacher, a presenter, an educator, a host of a podcast, and you're writing these wonderful books. And your daughter, who is visually impaired and is no doubt exceptional, but she's also an integral part of your work and your life as a professional. And that's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, you write what you know, and I never planned on all of this.
Of course.
You never plan on all of this, but I saw a need for it. I saw a need, and I also saw you teach people how to treat you. And I said to myself, I am going to give her a life without boundaries. Of course, if she's walking off a cliff, please save her, but I mean, there's certain things, but I wanted to give that to her. Right. And I wanted the world to see her the way I saw her. And I think sometimes people want to be nice. I mean, people always say, yes, I want to do this, or I want to be inclusive and want to be PC, but people don't know how. They don't know how, just as people are afraid. I mean, even my mother, she was so afraid for a long time, right. Like she was going to break this child. She treated her extra careful. And I'm like, no, she has to fall down so she knows how to get up, just like everybody else.
As you were sharing this piece, I was actually about to ask, how do we change the community's lens by which they see and respond to the uniqueness in our children?
By not hiding them, by going out. Yeah. By having that exposure and you have to teach, when kids and I have play dates and like the child will move, they move, they run around. And I said, you have to tell Victoria when you're going and maybe kind of help her move along. And they're like, oh, okay. So if you have to kind of set that example, but once you set that example, just as I just treat Victoria like any other kid going out and doing their stuff, then they pick up those clues. And then they can say, now she's in 6th grade, but when we were little, I always did everything with her to make sure that she was safe. And she went with the same group of girls. And there were times where we were at Girl Scouts and they were like, no, I got her. You're fine. They've already learned what to do to make sure that she's safe and physical safety. And they already know that's Victoria. She's fine. Why are you hovering over her? She's fine. But there's certain things too that's always nice with the kids when I say something like, you might want to hold her hand. She's very photosensitive. So on a bright sunny day, she'll need more help. So all of a sudden I saw a little girl kind of run up ahead, and Victoria's kind of, where did she go? So I'm like, come back here. And she's like, I forgot. And that's not like I forgot, and was bad, but I forgot she couldn't see. And that's what you want. That's what you want. You don't want to have that Rudolph story where you're always concentrating on that glowing red nose, flashing nose. And only thing you see is that cane. The only thing you see is that wheelchair. You want them to just be a person. And then we have to learn how to make accommodations. So on the playground, if it's a cloudy day, my daughter's going to be fine. If it's a really, really sunny day, you might have to watch her a little bit more. So that friend is going to learn that. And then when that friend is older, they're going to be more sensitive to that. They're going to be the employer that's going to say, give that applicant a chance.
Right. And I love the fact that the journey that the friends, the playmates have to go on, but they're going to come out as they get older and experience. It's not going to be, oh, that's unique. We don't know how to deal with this. Okay, let's ignore it and we'll go somewhere else. But say, no, this is inclusive, and we want people in our lives for their talents and their gifts and the ability to make a difference, not because, well, we don't know how to handle this, therefore, and we're not going to go down that path. And I think as adults, as a 50-something, that's great. I wish there was more of that when I was growing up. Where are you going now with your work? I mean, you're busy. You've got the books, the Star Power, Missing Voices, and the Facebook group. Where are you going now in this journey with the work that you're doing? Because it seems like there's a huge need out there. This is not a 9-to-5 job, I imagine, that you have.
No, it's a 24/7 all the time. But I'm coming out with some new books. In the spring, I will have a book about a zombie who's going on vacation. He lost his zombiness, and he has to find the perfect spot in order to get it back. So it's a very funny book. And I also have some nonfiction coming out as well. It's called The Singer and the Scientist, and it's about the friendship between Marian Anderson and Albert Einstein. So very serious kind of teacher books in a way that teachers can appreciate. But I think that if you had to sum up what my theme, because, you look at, I have kind of a wide range. I have very funny picture books. I have books that advocate with special needs. And then I have some more serious nonfiction. I think I root for the underdog. I have always been that square peg my whole life. And I root for all those square pegs. And then I also promote all those square pegs. And I think that I just am a champion for the underdog, and you can't stop that. And I think it's important because I want my books to make an impact and to want people not only to say it's a good story, but a good story also helps you relate to other people and helps you learn something in yourself. So when you say, how do you make that change? It's through knowing and growing internally. And if you don't have that exposure, so all of those people who have exposure with children with autism, with my daughter, visual impairments, are going to look at it differently. Really, the unknown is what is the most scariest thing in our life. People who hate, quote unquote, they don't know the other group. Because once you know the other group, that ignorance is erased and you can't hate in the same way.
Right. Oh, yeah. There's that little thing about learning and empathy.
Yes, you have to. You have to have that.
I have a sense of what you might say, but I'm just going to ask this anyways, because I ask this in all the shows, or almost all my shows.
Yeah.
What have you learned most about yourself on this journey of growing up and teaching and motherhood and the whole ball of wax?
Oh, that's a hard question. I wish you answered it for me. I think at times I feel like someone has way overestimated my abilities about what I can handle. But what I have learned is sometimes that you can't predict things. You definitely can't predict things. But I think that you find that you are able to do things that you never thought you would do before, and do it with confidence and grace.
Mm-hmm. There's a psychologist here in the University of Chicago. I'm going to mess up his name, but it's kind of like Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. And he talks about this concept of flow. So there's challenge and ability.
Mm-hmm.
And so the flow is when our abilities become routine.
Right.
And we're not challenged, then we're out of flow. But if we can constantly challenge ourselves, even if we're scared or afraid or we're unsure of ourselves, that if we, knowing that there's a safety net of sorts, I mean, somebody's there to help us get up, not to pick us up, but to help us get back up, and we're willing to want to learn to do different things. That's the Maslow's hierarchy of self-actualization. We're in flow. So it's making sure the challenges and the opportunities, the abilities are constantly expanding, because then our flow stream is continuing to grow. And, that's my sense of what you're going through is everything. Your journey is about taking on new challenges and new abilities, because life happens and we have to be willing to move forward.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, being brave is never having no fear. You think brave and afraid are opposites. They're really not. Brave is you're afraid and you do it anyway. And I think that I noticed at the points in my life that those things that I have thought were the worst were really the ones that pushed me for the most growth. I'm kind of glad that my life didn't go according to plan in many ways. I could never have predicted all of the different things that I've been able to create. Like, I didn't start out saying I'm going to teach in Detroit. I wanted the nice, cushy, suburban classroom.
Right.
And I always say urban teaching is like the suburbs is like a doctor's office. Everybody comes into their appointment. It's very nice. It's very orderly. Teaching in an urban classroom is like teaching in an emergency room. You never know what's going to come in that day, and you have to be prepared for everything. And those situations help you grow and make you who you are. And so I'm happy, I think now at 40 something of who I am, but that I could not have predicted all the bumps in the way. And yes, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And really, right. When we talk about empathy, what connects us as human beings is not the happiness, it's the suffering. Someone can understand, I feel that way too. Me too. That is really what binds us as humans, and to relate. And that's what I want when kids are reading a book, to say, wow, that girl, Star Powers, who's in that wheelchair, she's just like me. She feels the same feels that I feel. And when you have that, you erase that ignorance, that hate, that fear. And then that's where the loving and the friendship and the community comes in.
That's a wonderful sentiment, and certainly one that we need a lot more of in today's existence. I'm curious, Lisa, if Victoria were on the other side of this screen with me, and you were out of the room doing something, go get a cup of coffee or a tea or whatever, and I would ask her, "So, Victoria, tell me about your mom." What would she say?
She would probably, depends on the day. She's getting into middle school and puberty, so it's been a little rough here. But I think that she would say that I'm fun, I'm nice, I make good cookies.
That's important. That's important.
Yes, I think, though my daughter does not hate anyone. She's always been that way. She'll never say she hates that person. She will always say that person says mean words. And I didn't teach her that at all. I think that she was just born that way and everything. So, but she always thinks the best in people. So she wouldn't say anything negative about anybody. In fact, when I ask her, I'm like, do you like this teacher or that teacher? She's such a politician. I like them both.
She's going places, that young lady.
She does that. So the only person she had negative things to say about is somebody elected to the White House. So.
Well, it's I'll take her opinions on that as well. I would agree with that.
Which I was shocked, but we never use those. But she pays attention a lot more than I was thinking.
Good for her. Good for her. So. I wonder if you would share with our audience. You have some other hidden talents. You have an affinity for being near the water. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So so when you're not being the busy mom and the entrepreneur, the author, presenter, what else are you doing?
Well, I love to swim. I grew up being a competitive swimmer, and I found out I wanted to be a teacher by teaching swim lessons. And I've gotten into doing open water races.
Oh my.
And so it's wonderful because it's scary at first because there are no lines on the bottom. But I think there's a huge freedom in creating your own lines. So I love to do that, but I know where you're going with this, and I am a mermaid. I dress up as a mermaid and I swim, and I also do mermaid birthday parties. But the important thing about while I'm doing the birthday parties is I am really stressing the importance to conserve our water and our oceans. So when I do the birthday party, of course, everyone wants to take pictures with the mermaid and swim with the mermaid. But I also really think that we need to promote to the next generation about protecting our water resources. And I think, as you mentioned, I live in Detroit, and in Michigan, the Flint water crisis has been a huge deal in our state. And I think we have to start very, very young. And who better than to represent our Great Lakes waterways than a mermaid?
Of course.
Yes. So, yes, I have the full tail and everything, and it's a lot of fun. There are people who take it extremely seriously. I just like to have fun. I really never grew up. That's why they put me in first grade. I cannot graduate.
You go where you're happy, and that's important.
Actually, the kids are much smarter than adults, and they're much more fun, and that's why I like to hang out with them.
Oh, no. I mean, kids are incredibly intuitive because they haven't developed these, I don't know what you would call them, these, I wouldn't call them filters or layers, the layers of our parents, our ideas. If you just leave them by themselves, they figure things out. It's when
they have a freedom. Yeah. They have a freedom they haven't learned to cover or hide or think about someone might judge them. So they live their life without that fear of having someone judge them, where I think that's a gift that Victoria has, because she doesn't see other people around and worry maybe people are looking at me the wrong way. So I think sometimes we're afraid to do something or to try something or to grow because we're so worried about what other people are going to think and do and what they're going to say, and that's why people don't try things. And people don't realize, even as adults, you have to try things. Even like the biggest Steve Jobs, one of the biggest people in the world, he failed. People don't realize that successful people, they failed. I'm sure all these people that you've interviewed, they failed. I can't tell you how many books. People say, well, how many books have you written? I go, well, that's a very different question than how many books have been published.
Of course.
You have to realize, I think a lot of people think writers write this book and then they go off and get it published and make $1 zillion. And that's not how it works. You write and write and write. You work with a critique group and you make all these changes. And then in order to get into the bigger publishers, you have to work with an agent. It's very hard to get an agent as well. And you get an agent and then that agent makes changes. They send it off to a dozen publishers. You could get 11 rejections. Then you have one editor that says, I love it, I love it, I love it, but I need you to change everything. And you change things and keep changing things. And people don't understand that I really want to clarify that for your listeners, because this is really important. My process that I just described to you is traditional publishing. There are now many people who can self-publish.
Of course.
And they did not go through that whole process that I just did. That does not mean that their work does not have quality. And I want to stress that. But some of them you have to, if you're dealing with a self-published book, I want you to come there with the knowledge that it didn't come with all of that vetting. So it didn't go through the process of having your peers look at it. It didn't go through the process of having an agent look at it, an editor look at it, a marketing department look at it, proofreaders look at, publicists look at. It didn't go through all of that process. So when you are dealing with a self-published book, I want you to come to that book with that knowledge and take what they have to offer and use your own assessments.
I think those are very wise words. And we've had a lot of self-published authors on our podcast, including a number of children's book authors. And you've got the big name publishers, you have the independent publishers, and you have the self-publisher. And there's an entire journey. And I think one of the insights that I have gotten from or learned from to having these conversations is that everybody's journey is just a little different, but the ones that were involved in writing groups, critique groups, consistently asking for feedback, the quality of the book was that much better. And I think a lot of people get into, Lisa, I wrote a book. I don't know if did I tell you that? I wrote a book. And I equated to birthing a baby. Oh, that was incredibly painful.
Yes.
And I will say this is much more fun as the podcast, is having conversations. And because, it fits my personality, my style. Ask me to stand up and speak on a stage like from Toastmasters. It's gut-wrenching. Okay. But
I'm
doing
surprised. I think you would be great.
well, that's what everybody else says. It's like, no, yeah, it might be great, but it will hurt. It will hurt.
It's painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas this is fun. This is a great process to have a conversation, ask questions. You still have to do your homework. And I think that, the authors, especially the independent ones, need to do their homework of what they're getting themselves into so they can create the best possible book. Because there's still a lot of folks creating books out there wondering, why is nobody buying my book?
Well, I mean, a lot of people think like, well, I don't want to go through all that work. And especially since I said, even if I sell something today, it's not going to be out for 2 more years. And that's quick. So there's a lot of people who tell me, because I get a lot of people that ask me, they think that I'm just going to like hand them everything that took me 10, 15 years to learn and say, here, go get your book. That they'd say, oh, I don't want to do all of that. I'll just self-publish. And the thing that I say about self-publishing is, who is your audience? I don't want to be selling books out of the trunk of my car. I want to, and even so, when you're dealing with a publisher, you have to do your own promotions and your own everything. A lot of the time, it's you. Sure, you have a house, but the publishing house gets you in bookstores, gets you across the country, gets you in libraries. So I always say to people, if they want to self-publish, I always ask, what is your purpose? And if your purpose is to tell a nice little family story and to make something, go ahead. If you think you're going to become J.K. Rowling and have all this stuff, no, that's not going to be you. And then some people self-publish, but they already have a platform. They already have, I'm doing this, I'm a CEO of a company, I want to share what I have learned. That's actually too, now with celebrities publishing everything. They already have all of these built-in buyers. And there's a lot of celebrities that do children's books, and just because you're an actor doesn't mean you can write a children's book. And some of them are good. Some of them are bad. It depends. I wouldn't say bad, but I would just say that the reason why they published the book was not because of the story. It was because of who wrote the story. Where I feel that if you are a celebrity writing a book, that the story has to be worthy of publishing, whether your name is on it or not.
Right. Yeah. And I think that is great insight because, there are lots of books out there. Even the marketing for the podcast, there's lots of authors out there. There's lots of emails that we're receiving. I'd love to be on your podcast. And then you kind of we're at the point now, we have to kind of vet who we bring on the podcast, because we did 80 some podcasts last year. So I'm at the point right now, I want quality, I want the quality.
Yeah.
You made it. Woo-hoo.
I made it.
Right.
I made the cut.
Happy dance. Okay. But I think, if we're writing for quality and there's a need and we're helping us solving a problem or creating some awareness around an issue that is so important, that to me is what makes a difference in this kind of work. We have actually spent a fair amount of time. Lisa, if you were to provide some final thoughts within the lens of your body of work, and we call on our show an insight to go. And because you've kind of alluded to a number of the points, but what would you want to leave, whether it's the reader or a parent or the community, what would you want to leave them with in terms of your experience and, what you've learned along the way on your journey with your daughter, writing the book series?
Right. I would say, just as a parent, not only as an author, but with a child with special needs, that, don't be afraid to invite them. Because I think a lot of times that parents just don't know. Invite them. Ask questions. We, as parents of kids who have special needs, we know our kids aren't like a drop off and go type of situation. So we're really there to support you. So invite them, ask questions. And that's how the inclusion happens. Don't be afraid. And it's okay if you don't do the right thing, because we'll help you. We know that. We didn't know the right thing. You think I got all these instructions? I got nothing. She came with a diaper. What more did I know? That was it. But yeah, I mean, she was adopted. So they basically just handed me, here you go. Happy Hanukkah. and go. We did, we had to bring the own car seat. She didn't even come with a car seat. We had to bring one. I mean, we didn't have all this. And that's how you learn. That's how you grow as an individual. Don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. Force yourself to do that. You can find out more about me, about my journey, you can see all sorts of superhero pictures with canes at my website, which is www.lisarosewrites.com. I'm Lisa Rose Writes on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. It's just Lisa Rose. But if you look up Lisa Rose Writes, you will find it all, including mermaids. Oh, and I have to say, because I'm starting my New Year's resolution, is I am going to be very active on Pinterest. So I have actually, before this call, I was learning how to do that with a coach. So I am getting up all of my boards because I realize that's how you reach your audience. A lot of my audience are parents and teachers. So that is Lisa Rose Writes on Pinterest. So we just started. There'll be a lot more, but please check me out.
We will do that. And I have to say, Lisa, you took my last line of like, Lisa, so if our guests would like to learn more about you and your work.
Sorry.
You went right into it. It's like,
I figured we only had a few more minutes, so I was not going to leave without getting that cheap promotion.
Okay. Okay, on that. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And by all means, we'll provide all those links and share us the Pinterest link as well, too. And we'll have those on the show notes. So the website, Lisa Rose Writes, and Lisa Rose Writes at Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, et cetera, et cetera.
Everything. It's amazing how many places you have to be right now.
It is totally amazing. And you have to do it all by yourself. It's like, yay. But
yes.
Well, Lisa, it was a pleasure to get to know you. We conquered the technological impasse of audio and video. We made it, and
we survived.
We survived. Yes, we did. And
we did it.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me and just allowing me to share this experience with all of your listeners. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me.
Well, thank you again. And we're going to be looking forward to hearing more about you and your work and your journey and Victoria's journey. And just really, it's a good way to end the week on a positive note. Is some great opportunities to learn and to be more inclusive and grow the community. So thank you again.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Yay.
All right, folks. So, hey, we have just been chatting with Lisa Rose, award-winning author of the children's fiction and nonfiction picture books, teacher, presenter, advocate for children with special needs, mom to Victoria, the young superstar daughter. And we also learned that Lisa's also a mermaid. So if you are in the Detroit area and you're looking for a mermaid, or, if you've got the money, you can fly her anywhere. And I'm sure she'll be willing to bring the mermaid outfit with her as well. But really, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. We love having our children's book authors and any author for that matter who is passionate about their work, looking to make a difference not only for themselves, for their audience. In this case, we have children, parents, and the community. And That's what we look for in the Success Insight podcast. And most definitely, we will provide in the show notes links back to Lisa's website, Lisa Rose Writes, as well as all the other social links as well. And if you have any comments regarding this podcast, please let us know in the comments section of the successinsightpodcast.com website. We also have links to the podcast and all the social sites as well, and also the other podcast platforms. So lots of opportunities to comment as well as to share the podcast with people that you think would love to listen to it as well. All right, folks, that's it. And as we say every episode, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day, and make a difference. Take care now. We'll see you on the next episode of the Success Insight Podcast. Take care.
Success Insight is a production of Fox Coaching and First Story Strategies. Find us online, successinsightpodcast.com.